Hello, today we're going to look at the demand curve. So, if we think about the demand curve, the people that demand things are consumers or customers. And just like yourself and myself, when we go into a shop and we buy a t-shirt or an orange juice or a bag of crisps, we are consumers or customers. We are demanding that product. So we need to think about, well, the relationship of price and the amount that we would buy. So with our demand curve, we are always going to have price on the y-axis and quantity on the x-axis. So we can assume that if the price is very high, the quantity demanded would be pretty low, which makes sense, because if something is very expensive, you can only buy a little bit of it. But as the price tends to fall, we can buy more of that product, and so on, until the price is, very, very low, and we can buy a lot of that product. So generally connecting these points will give us the demand curve. And we tend to label that with a D in economics. So you can get movements along the demand curve. So for example, when the price goes down, the quantity increases, or if the price goes up, the quantity will decrease, which can be shown, by a simple arrow. If the price goes down, the quantity will increase. And if the price goes down even further, the quantity will increase even more. So these are called movements along the demand curve. However, we can also change the demand curve, and we can shift out or in the demand curve. So we're going to call it P for price, and we're going to have Q for quantity. So I'm just going to draw a simple demand curve, and I'm going to call this one D. So for example, if the demand for a product was to increase, that would mean at any given price, rather than just buying this quantity Q1, people are willing to buy more. So that would cause a shift in the demand curve. So from D, it would go out to D1. That is an increase. That means demand has increased. And you can also look at it in the same manner, that at the same quantity, people are willing to pay more for it. And this can be, something like the Omega Swatch watch that was released, whereby people still wanted to buy one watch, but rather than paying $300, they were willing to pay $600 or $800. So there was an increase in demand for that product. And if we were to go from D1 to D2, from D1 to D, demand has decreased. So if we were to go the other way, demand would decrease, which makes sense in terms of, that means for the same quantity, people are willing to pay less. if something has fallen out of fashion, for example, and people want to buy one t-shirt, rather than saying I'll pay $20 for it, no one really likes it, I'll pay $10 for it. Or if people would spend £10 on crisps, now they would get far more bags of crisps. Before they might get 10 bags, and now they might get 20 bags. So the demand has fallen for that. And you can look at, the reasons for a shift in demand. The first one could be fashion or trends. So if something is in fashion, people are willing to pay more for it. Or if something becomes, very trendy, people want to buy more of it or pay a higher price for it. The second one can be income levels. So as your income increases, you tend to see an increase in demand as well. So because you get paid more, maybe you're buying more bags of crisps, or maybe you're buying more clothes, or maybe you're buying more watches. Whatever your vice is, that tends to be the general assumption of why demand would increase. Again, you can have advertising. So if you see more adverts for it, you will try, the aim is that you will buy more of that product. So for example, if I saw fast food adverts everywhere, I would be more likely to buy fast food. The next one is the price of substitutes. So a substitute, remember, is a product that you can replace another product with. So let's take toothpaste. And if we had two brands of toothpaste and the one that I usually buy is more expensive, I will shift to a different brand. Or cars and buses. For example, if cars became really expensive, the demand for buses would increase because people can't afford cars, so they would use buses. You can also have the price of complements. Complements are goods that are used together, so video games and video consoles, or video gaming consoles. So for example, if the price of PlayStation games was extortionate, people wouldn't buy the PlayStation because what use is a PlayStation without the games? Or if they had, mugs and coffee. If the price of mugs went down, people could buy more coffee because they could have more mugs in their home to drink the coffee from. And you can have demographic changes. So if we were to look at demographic changes, the age of people, could change the demand for products in your country. So a country like Japan has a very aging population, which might mean that the demand for nursing homes or care homes could increase, or certain products would increase because they would target that market as well. If you had a lot of people coming in from different parts of the world, you can target those people. So for example, if you had a large proportion of women in your country, the demand for certain goods that women like would increase. Or if you had a geographical distribution, so for example, schools and hospitals in urban areas like cities would be more in demand than out in very, very rural areas. So the demand for a hospital in Nairobi city center would be far more in demand than a hospital in Savo in the middle of nowhere. Ethnic groups as well. So you can have, certain restaurants might be in demand because that is what the general population like the taste of. So, for example, a very strange or a very niche restaurant in a country that has very strong kind of ethnic groups may not do so well because you're not targeting a large proportion of that country. And those would be the factors that shift demand. So you not only need to know movements along the demand curve, but you also need to know how demand moves out and how it moves in as well. So the shifts in demand. You need to understand that if you're shifting demand outwards, that means demand is increasing, whereas if demand shifts inwards, demand is decreasing.